Welcome, everyone, to Nerd Rage Gaming. My name is Dan Hugar. I am here today with Adam. Wait, Whitman?
Whitman.
Whitman. All right. Well, anyway, hello. We have something a little different today for you all. So, why are you not showing the Pokemon thing? You are showing the Pokemon thing. Excellent. So, what are we? Wait, are we online? Hold on.
Someone was already in the chat, I saw, right when the chat went live. Or the
Beautiful.
stream went live.
All right,
There
beautiful.
we
We are
go.
good. Hello, Brian. Hello, Arctic. Sammy, good to see you, man. So here's the thing, guys. We apparently have a ton of people getting ready and prep for Toronto, so we're gonna do something a little different today. Because I'm not gonna lie, I'm being a little selfish here, and you all are welcome to hate me. I need to play some freaking games to get ready for this event. And Adam, I know you want to play some Pokemon today too.
I do want to play some Pokemon. I've been on the grind for the past few weeks. I'm looking to play as well.
Beautiful. So, because of this, we certainly didn't want to exempt our lovely stream from talking a little bit about Toronto. So, here's the thing. Because of, thank you for the love. Because we are prepping for Toronto, we are just going to have Adam and I talk for a little bit about what our picks are, why we're going with the list we're going with, and then what we think are going to win the event. So that way we can get you guys some prep, and then Adam and I can go play a little Pokemon. So, we'll definitely share results from today and everything on Twitter. But to start, I'm just going to introduce myself. Hi, I'm Dan. I play the Pokemon trading card game. And because I put it together for our stream, I'm just going to throw up my lovely little, Limitless page
The
just so you
shameless
all know
plug.
why. Oh, it's shameless. I just want you all to know that when I say things about the game, I am reasonably competent at the Pokemon trading card game. So if someone comes in and watches this stream and says, why should I listen to this guy besides how good he sounds? This is why. I'm sorry, guys. I'm on it. It's a day. And so Adam, tell us though a little bit about your history. How long have you been playing? What got you into the game? All of that.
Sure. So this is my second full year playing. I started last October around the release of Obsidian Flames. I had been historically playing a bunch of different TCGs and VGCs, or virtual card games.
Sure.
So I played Yu-Gi-Oh for a very long time when I was a bit younger in high school. I took a break from competitive card playing, stuck to more online games like Hearthstone. And then a few of my friends got into Pokemon over the past couple years, and it really started that itch to get back into the competitive scene. So here I am.
Fantastic. Dude, I'm happy to have you here. I know I've made this comment to you before, but obviously I was here when you first started playing, and you are such a good player at this point. It is infuriating because now I know you can whoop my butt every time we play. So it is awesome to see you grow and get better in the game week after week.
I really appreciate that. It's been a longer process over these past 2 years. I've been very thankful to be around a community that's very competitive. I feel like Chicago historically has been pretty good across the board in TCGs.
Yes.
So I've been very thankful to be able to grind against some very good quality players. World championship quality players and regional topping quality players as well.
And it's an honor. It's good to have these good guys around us. And then Dan, Kevin, thank you all for joining us, guys. So what Adam and I are going to do here is we're just going to talk through what our top picks are for the event, why they are our top picks for the event, and then what we think you should all do. So Sammy, to your question, in Drago, I actually really like Bundle over Hawlucha because I think Hawlucha can fix some math. I don't know if Temple's necessary right now before Lugia wins, but I don't think Hawlucha's bad. I think Bundle is good, and I think honestly it's up to you. Whichever you think has been most effective from your testing, or if you think it's going to be a ton of little babies evolving into stage 2s, go to it, my guy.
I think it's super dependent on, like Dan was saying, what you're expecting more to play against. If you're expecting a lot of mirrors, I feel like the bundle, you can't go wrong with it for sure.
Yes.
But as far as the wider range of the field, I feel like Hawlucha might have a bit more value, and in certain matchups, of course.
And actually, I think Hawlucha is going to have a ton of value even into basic Vs and EXs because 210 is just a smidge off of that Phantom Dive number.
Absolutely.
Or, since everyone's kind of seeing the list shift, that Rolling Iron number.
Oh, yeah.
Because being able to knock out a Teal Mask Ogerpon with Rolling Iron to take 2 prizes, that could be a huge swing.
Oh, yeah. That definitely flips the game on that side for sure. The ability to mitigate that damage with Gudra is pretty crazy, especially in the mirror and even more niche matchups.
Yes. All right, so Adam, let's start with you, my friend. we talked a little bit before the stream what our top 3 decks are. Can you give me what number 3 is for you? What do you think is the third most successful deck this upcoming weekend?
I think it may not be represented in the meta percentages, but I do think that Cloth will have a very strong representation in Day 2 and in Top Cut. I feel like we've seen the evolution of Cloth over these past few weeks, months or so, and while Robin's list isn't necessarily what everyone is playing, it's a good skeleton to start with before you tinker with different tools, different Pokemon that you could use, different items, different supporters as well.
Sammy, I would say if Rowan says it, I'm going to take a quick tangent here, Adam, because I agree with everything you're saying, and I want to hear more of your thoughts. So I am a pretty good player, as I showed by my Limitless page. And I actually haven't felt outclassed in a game in a couple of years. And then I played against Rowan. And that man made me look like a 2-year-old figuring out how cards worked. It was wild. So I say this because, Sammy, whatever Rowan tells you to do, you should listen, because that man is possibly the best player I've ever played against.
I will say, though, I've been listening to a lot of different videos and different podcasts that Rowan's been on the past few weeks, and he's been a big advocate of the Miraidon also.
He has.
That's very interesting. I feel like Miraidon tends to be pretty popular in our area. We haven't seen it too much the past few challenges and cups, but I'm curious when it will pop its head back up. It's very interesting.
You know, I actually am going to go with number 3. I think Wagwan is going to be the move. So,
Wagwan general.
Adam, thank you for letting me tangent. So, like you said, Robin Schultz put together a really good list here.
Absolutely.
And this deck is just, it is weird, man, but it works. So, like, why do you think this is such a highly competitive deck?
I feel like, at first, of course, you can't ignore the fact that this is one of the only decks that has that quote-unquote consistent donk ability. I feel like that is a game changer. It's very frustrating when you're on the other side of it. We saw at the cup. I don't know if it was on stream or not. I've heard a couple donks that were going on.
We did see Michael Davidson get donked by Jarek, and it was
tough.
A little demoralizing for the guy.
100%. But I feel like having that potential, plus the poison manipulation, being able to lock off Fez's ability is major in this format. Seeing as how it's one of the most powerful cards we have right now. Having access to Trolley and being able to dump your entire deck onto the board turn 1 is awesome.
Yes.
And the Guru, I think, is super cool. I mean, I've seen the card before, and I had to read it a handful of times these past few weeks because this came out before my time. So being able to see it in use and being so as good as it is, being able to search out Sealstone off the rip is crazy.
I would agree. It's just, it is a very strong deck. It uses a very weird combination of things, but I think this is, what I would call like a pre-rotation deck. There have been so many sets. You can pull all these miscellaneous pieces together and get some ridiculous stuff out of it.
This really is the rotation troop right here, honestly.
Yes, 100%. All right, so then I'm going to throw out my number 3 pick, which is a little bit of a dark horse, and I'm actually going to say Ancient Box. So speaking of Cloth, the Cloth deck doesn't struggle with a lot of matchups, but this is actually one of them. And I think if Cloth is a huge being like 10%, like this could be a sneaky play. Now, I gotta admit, I don't know if I love the amount of 2-prize Pokemon that are in this list.
I agree.
But I love the Mochi with the Brute Bonnet. And I do think Pheasantipity or Petrarunt, one of those two, may be good enough to sneak into the list just to give you some more flexibility and just let you cook control if you for some reason find one.
I was just about to say, if you have Petrarunt in your list and any deck that can utilize it, it's like almost an auto win against control. And I'm not the biggest fan of control. It's relatively popular here as well, so I played against it a decent amount. But being able to utilize Petrarunt to get out of that matchup is pretty crazy also.
It is, and I hate control with a fiery passion. I hate stall with a fiery passion.
Me too.
They are good to have in the format. They are healthy for the game. I never want to play them.
Oh, no, me neither. Play as it or against it is not necessarily something I'm looking forward to.
Right.
It's not necessarily my play style. It's in my opinion, just pretty boring to play.
It is. Sammy, I'm going to tangent again because you're getting me a lot of great tangents here, Sam. So one of my good friends, Kevin Krieger, Dr. Kevin Krieger, excellent player. So they and I were starting to test together coming out of COVID, and we were talking through strategies. And their strategy was, if they are not as good of a player into like the field or the meta they're playing against, then they need to build their deck to account for that.
Sure.
And I think there's a lot of like logic in that of, I'm not going to win 9 times out of 10 if both of our decks function perfectly and have equal power levels. So I have to high roll a little bit, have the power level of my deck be slightly higher than yours, even if it's not as consistent, because I know that is the difference maker for me. It's the playing to win rather than just playing per like the guidelines of the game.
Yeah.
So I would say, If you think in the mirror you're not going to beat the mirror, tech to give yourself an advantage.
I 100% agree.
And so, Adam, like, how do you approach that then with your deck building?
Sure. So I was going to counterpoint that to me, I don't necessarily build my deck to do what you were just saying. I grind my deck into the ground, so I know that I have more reps than my opponent does. Unless,
Yeah.
of course, they are, whoever they may be, that has way more accomplishments than I do. But I guess the average Joe, I'm pretty confident that I could outgrind somebody in a matchup that I'm very confident in, especially the Zard mirror.
Kevin, please hold a Canadian beer for me. I will be there at 8 p.m. tomorrow and so hyped.
I'll be there in spirit.
Excellent. We will pour one out for you, Adam. But all right, so back to Ancient Box.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's probably, to me, the strongest single prize deck in the format.
For sure.
You are able, I think stuff like Mischievous and then stuff like Great Tusk, I think, can be so underrated for the impact it can have on a deck and on a game plan.
Yeah, and I think that we saw the quote-unquote resurgence of Ancient Box after Baltimore and after Worlds as well. We never saw it really hit its full potential, I feel.
Right.
And I think there's a lot of innovation to go around. And I think I agree with you back on your point with these extra 2 prizers. I think you choose between the Petron and the Pheasantipity. Maybe toss the Roaring Moon aside and just go pure 1 prize Baby Moon into the face.
That seems good to me.
Yeah.
All right, so Adam, give us your number 2 deck going into the weekend.
Number 2, no bias needed. I'm definitely looking forward to watching Zard on the big stage again. It's my if you see me at local, it's my all-time favorite deck as of now. I've been grinding it into the ground, and I think that this list right here is as close to my list as possible, where you have a lot of resources after your quote-unquote linear setup between Pidgeot and Zard. And you have a lot of tools at your disposal to kind of pick apart your opponent.
And I think that's one of the reasons I think this deck can be so scary is because you have so many tools to dismantle your opponent's game plan.
Absolutely.
The decks we talked about so far, like Cloth and Ancient, you kind of do one thing, you just do it very well. This is a deck where you're still taking prizes, you're still knocking out the active, but Thornton, Briar, all these cards give you such an opportunity to take very weird lines to close out a game.
Absolutely. I know there's been a debate between the use of Unfair Stamp versus Secret Box. I haven't done too much testing with the Secret Box build, but Unfair Stamp has pulled its weight massively. I think that against matchups that you're not so confident in or where it's not so in your favor, the Unfair Stamp swings it, and you have access to that Pidgeot after it's done with even the Pheasantipity as well, where you're drawing so many cards and have access to so many cards after you reset your opponent.
Well, and you also played Zard to a top 4 finish at the Cup on Sunday.
I did.
Clearly did. And you told me you didn't lose a game except to Rafal that whole day.
I felt pretty good going into these last few weeks of Cups and Challenges. My only biggest fear really is, like you were just saying, decks like Rafal's where it just stops my game plan. I can't even hit the ground running. I'm just trying to play an uphill battle before I even get set up, and it's very difficult to navigate. But I will say the inclusion of Canceling Clone, which is not in this list, definitely can flip the game in your favor. A correctly timed Canceling Clone, that is.
And so I'm going to ask everyone to not play that in their deck, but that's a preview for my number 1 overall pick. But my second choice for this tournament would be actually Dragapult Dusknoir. So this is the deck I played to win a cup and have played a lot recently, and I just think it is so strong because Dragapult is obviously an incredible attacker. Phantom Dive is the basis for multiple decks in the format, even if you're not evolving into it.
Yeah.
Dusknoir is broken, just like I will fairly say broken.
It's pretty crazy. And
the deck can just be so good because you are able to accelerate your game plan so effectively using that Dusknoir to fix math, destroy what your opponent's trying to do, and just a similar but different. Zard will pick apart their board by having the big guy one-shot the stuff and then pick off little enemies or fix math. Dragapult, you just set up a long-term kind of checkmate board where you clear out their threats all at the same time before hitting with an Iono or something. For me, the only thing, and it is super weird, 2 weird parts that I would include in this deck, is I think Crispin is better as a Mela.
Okay.
And I think Third Iono is better as and I promise I'm serious with this, a Kofu.
Okay.
Adam is giving me an incredulous look over here of what are you talking about?
I will say, to preface this, Dan has been both memeing and being serious with the Kofu, so I can't tell which one we're dealing with right now.
I'm actually serious. I'm actually serious with the Kofu this time. So the reason being, because this is a combo-based deck, you're trying to find the rare candy in combination with your evolution guy. You're trying to find just all the pieces to pull together. Being able to add to your hand is very valuable. And because there's not a lot of things that draw strongly and don't really want to play research when you have this many cards you want to protect, being able to draw 4 and then shove 2 pieces you don't care about now but you want later to the bottom of your deck is actually pretty good, especially when combined with the Pheasantipity or something. You can see 7 additional cards into your hand not have to like draw or try to dig and lose combo pieces you already have.
Yeah, and I think that, as you were saying, the swapping out the Iono and Crispin, I think if you're playing one or the other as a third Iono, you got to play the pair. I
Yes.
think that playing a mix of 3 Iono plus Mela seems like a bit clunky. I will say, though, I do like the Crispin inclusion. I feel like it gives you that kind of turbo attack as your on your turn 2 or turn 3, I guess, potentially. Whereas we've seen in the past that Dragon Ball has a hard time getting the ball rolling sometimes.
It does. Crispin is definitely the get ahead of the curve,
Yeah.
whereas Mela is the I get to come back if you take a knockout.
Exactly.
All right, Adam, we're at the last one.
Mhm.
What is your number one pick going into the weekend?
As much as I don't like playing against it, it's got to be Regidrago. I feel like even though we haven't seen it have the expected finishes that we've seen the past 2 or 3 majors, it's still highly represented and it still has the widest range of tools in its arsenal. It has the tendency to be super oppressive. It can pull games out that wouldn't necessarily be able to be won with the Legacy Star, and access to all these attackers, these literal toolbox of attackers, is really, really scary.
It is clearly the best deck in the format.
Easily.
Just hard stop, no question, the best deck in the format. I don't think it's tier S,
No.
but I don't think it's so much better that no one should play anything else, but it's clearly the best.
100%. How do you feel about the Hoot Hoot and Noctowl inclusion in this list?
So I actually, this is like, and I put here on the little caption, the Regidrago list,
Sure.
because this is the one that has about a bajillion finishes on
Yeah.
Limitless. I think it's good. Like, I think it's very good. It's very helpful to set up in an extra game plan. I think now with a Alolan Executor, with the meta shifting a bit, I don't know if it's as good as it was, but like, guys, this list has won so much money. You're not going to go wrong with it.
100%. If you just copy paste this, you've got some reps on this, I'm sure you'll be successful for sure.
And when in doubt, if you're not sure what to play the best deck in format.
Definitely.
Just hard stop, play the thing where you can sit down every single game and know that you are in, at a minimum, like neutral standing with everyone.
And I definitely agree. I will say, though, this is definitely not a plug and play kind of deck. You can't
Right.
just pull up the day before, weekend before, and say, hey, I'm going to drop Regidrago on here and do my best. I don't know if that's the best game plan. You got to get some reps on this, because even though its game plan is pretty consistent, the branches that you could take are very niche, and you have to make sure that you're aware of them before you enter any game, I feel.
It's not quite as complicated, Guardy, but it's the same kind of idea of you're making many decisions each turn, and each time you make a decision, there's an opportunity to get ahead and fall behind.
Absolutely.
All right, and so for my pick for the weekend, it's also still Dragapult, except for it is Dragapult with a lovely 4 set of Iron Thorns EX. So I don't like stall.
Sure.
I don't like control,
Mhm.
but I do actually really enjoy decks that win by taking prizes, but force their opponent into highly uncomfortable situations. In case you didn't know, Adam, I played a lot of Lasso and Giratina.
Oh, yes.
And I won a lot of games of that deck because my opponent just couldn't close things out after I disrupted and kind of made their life miserable.
Oh, yeah.
And so this is kind of along those lines where all the weaknesses Dragapult really has are it's so slow to get going that you can fall behind too quick. But if your opponent's stuck, you got plenty of time.
I will say, looking at this list and playing against it over the past week, this is the closest thing that I've seen in Pokemon to like an anti-meta kind of deck.
Yeah.
Without being straight control. And it's really appealing to me. I was a big fan of another TCGs playing anti-meta decks. They're not necessarily slow, boring. They're just hard disruption and still able to take prizes or deal damage, whatever terminology you want to use for it. And I think that Iron Thorns is a pretty good partner for Dragapult in that sense, for sure. Plus the Toad Scroll.
Yes, Garbodor is an excellent example. So my very first deck when I started playing the trading card game was Espeon Garbodor.
Nice.
Because same thing, you slow them down, you force them to make bad decisions, you prevent them from doing what they want, and you still win the game faster. You just win the game faster because they can't enact their plan.
Yeah. And one thing I was going to mention on the last Dragapult list as well, with a more experienced players, spreading all that damage could just panic them. They really don't know how to work around it. What damage to take off the board, and with this, it just throws in that extra oomph that it may need to really disrupt anyone that really comes across it. I mean, especially those more inexperienced players.
Absolutely. And so Mads Jensen, the person who piloted this to a top 8 at Stuttgart, he did an interview on the Lake of Rage.
Yep.
Great podcast. Check it out
Definitely.
if you haven't already. And he talked a lot about this list, and he actually said Toadscruel was incredibly powerful, and I agree. I think that is a major selling point to this list in general.
I agree. And we were talking about it outside before we got into the room here that I was a pretty big doubter of Toadscruel in general, but after listening to all those pods and everything that everyone had to say about it, especially Meds, it really opened my eyes to the effect that it may have on a bunch of really polarizing matchups. I feel like it could definitely be included in other decks as well.
I think, and I agree. I think it could fit in other stuff. The tricky part is what lists can find the space
Yeah.
when they aren't or deciding to not engage with their primary game plan. And a deck like this, where you're slowing the game down enough where you can afford to set up that bench
Mhm.
spot, it makes a lot of sense.
Sure.
But like Reggie Drago can't really afford to cram this in there.
Right.
Like Charizard can't really afford to cram this
Yeah.
in there. But this is a list that can take advantage of it.
And I think it's really just because of our ace spec here. I mean, the trolley just drops everything on the board and gets you that turn 1 setup where you're threatening the Toad Squirrel turn 2.
Yes. And Lost City, I think, could be very, very good into this deck.
Yes.
But if you put it in the discard and throw a Toad down, they can't get it back anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
And the other thing I would note is the advantage with Toad Squirrel is that you can Evo TM into it immediately. You can't search out a stadium or anything in this. And that's kind of where I've been struggling because I would like more stadium outs. But since you're so limited on your draw, it is really tough to find that. And I also agree, Flying. Like, I would love more Iono. I would love more Gust.
Yeah.
But the way this deck functions, you're kind of based on just using your Iron Thorns to hit into the active a couple times before you can start setting up your math.
And to me, honestly, that's probably the most unappealing part of the deck. I feel like you're really dependent on getting that damage, that initial damage with Iron Thorns. And if you can't see a Crispin and an energy attached in the first 2 turns, you're not getting that damage. And it's kind of just sitting and waiting for that Dragapult to start doing damage.
Agreed. And Jolly, I think you're right on your game. Actually, Mad said the most cuttable card is a Terra Orb. So certainly up.
And I would agree. I've done some testing with this list exactly copy pasted, and I feel like Terra Orb is almost it's just extra.
It's nice.
It's nice, yeah. Not always necessary, especially when your setup is that slow. You're seeing so many cards.
Yes.
You know, with a full setup, you're seeing 6 to 8 cards with just Drekloak, so it's pretty crazy.
Very true. I would not mind a candy either. That would be good.
That's one thing that I was debating as well when I was testing. I think that, but going back to again, your setup is so slow with this kind of build that I feel like the candy you don't really need it. You're getting your cloaks on the board every game.
And that's kind of the idea is if you get your candy and you're relying on that to play the game, you're probably already losing, unfortunately.
I agree.
All right. Well, honestly, this is about it for today because, like you said, we got to go play some games. We just want to make sure we still dialed in, had a little time on the stream. So, Adam, any last thoughts before Toronto that you think would be good to share?
Good luck to our friends out there. You know, a lot of our friends from locals are going out there this week, and they're already there right now. I wish them the best luck. I'm looking for some more Limitless pages from the homies. Nothing but the best for you guys. Good luck.
No, I appreciate it. And same. I'm excited to go see some of our Canadian brethren in Anil and Kieran, who are apparently our sister store or sister crew out there, and just excited to go play some Pokemon.
If you and all of them are together with Trevor, I hope he brought his Digimon card because it is because it is actually just called Ogremon.
Fantastic!
I know if Anil sees that, he's gonna love it. So I'm hoping he brought it. I hope they meet up. And
Trevor had already said he had a gift for them. So great, excellent. All right, well, thank you all very much for hanging and joining us for a little bit. Really appreciate it. Like you said, this is Nerd Rage Gaming. We have locals every Thursday. We will have our next cup coming up in the spring, and we'd love to have you guys join us here next Thursday. So have a great night, and we will see you here next time at Nerd Rage Gaming.